I'm here to repay a debt of gratitude. But first, I must take you back to 1989. I was married with 4 children, living in the seaside town of Folkestone on the south coast of England. I was a police officer and nearing the end of my police career. My life in the police was all about justice, but it's about tackling injustice that has become the focus of my life now. Injustice, intolerance, and inequality. I hate injustice. I hate it when people are denied the same opportunities as others enjoy because they can be manipulated into compliance. Towards the end of 1989, I watched the extraordinary revolutions which began with Poland and ended with Romania and the hasty trial and execution of the Ceausescus. Despite being aware of a great historical event unfolding, Romania could have been a million miles away. Moved by the world's media coverage of the thousands of Romanian children living in squalid orphanages, I set off together with a UK nurse in a borrowed van crammed full of baby food, disposable nappies, toys, clothes and medicines. On arriving in Bucharest, we met some British nurses who invited us to work with them in our home hospital situated in Plătărești, in the county of Calaraș. Nothing in my life had prepared me for that moment. The single-story building was surrounded by a formidable wall. On entering the institution, the smell of excrement and vomit was overwhelming. There were the screams and excited mutterings of young people sharing in incomprehensible language. And of course the rocking, the continuous rocking of frail bodies back and forth, as if perhaps instinctively recalling a time when at some stage they had been in their mother's arms. The small miserable room that I was to work in contained 20 young children, aged about 8 years. Each child lay motionless on their backs in 20 rusty white cots with vertical bars, giving the impression of small prison cells set side by side. Carmen occupied a cot at the back of the room on the right. Her frail and wrinkled body resembled that of an 80-year-old, and it looked as if she was that age, a person trapped in a small child's body. Carmen died a week later. On the other side was Florentina, a beautiful Roma child with black curly hair, and despite her enormous eyes, she was virtually blind. Opposite Flori lived Claudia, another beautiful child, who just lay there on her back, staring, gazing at something that the rest of us could not see. All the children had pot bellies, and I couldn't help likening them to the images of starving children in Africa. Similarly, flies congregated around their eyes and their mouths. They either seemed to enjoy the attention that they were being given, or were too lethargic to brush them away. Mealtimes broke the monotony. 20 babies' bottles of milk with a little bit of crushed maize, delivered in old metal buckets covered with a cloth. We were determined to make a change. We had to. So we set about it quickly. We went against the director's wishes and weaned them on to the baby food and onto solid food, which stopped the diarrhea and the vomiting. We persuaded the protesting children to leave their cots, the only world they had ever known, and to interact with the others on the floor. We helped many to learn to walk, which in turn opened up a vast and exciting world for them to explore. The children experienced going outside and feeling the sun on their pallid skins for the first time. On the wall above each cot, a colourful sign proudly pronounced the name of the occupant. Sanity was beginning to return to one of the rooms at last. During 1990 and 1991, I regularly visited Plătărești to work with the children and organised a convoy of 100 vehicles and 300 volunteers to visit and deliver material aid and work with children in 15 institutions around the country. Life can be unfair. Back home, during Christmas 1991, tragedy struck my family. My oldest son, John, was killed in a traffic accident a few days after his 19th birthday. My life was suddenly in turmoil, and I found it increasingly impossible to comprehend the world around me. I took early retirement from the police, either despite or because of the turmoil, to move to Bucharest and immerse myself in a 2-year project with a charity I had set up in England to help the children from Plătărești. I hate intolerance. I hate it when people are denied the same opportunities that others enjoy because they are different to the masses. I found myself living in Zabuți, the Bucharest ghetto as it is now known, where I was referred to by the local residents as the crazy Englishman. Strangely, although it was a no-go area, I felt comfortable staying there and easily mixed with the local residents in the bars and cafes. The Romanian government offered us a small apartment block. The plan was to convert the block into large apartments that would provide lifelong foster care to 50 of the children from Plătărești and encourage them to develop like any other child in the community. We changed the name of the block from P1 to Joanne House. I simply immersed myself into the life of the area, and it never occurred to me that others would think of me as an oddity. The project, however, proved to be a nightmare. The Romanian government broke all its promises. Despite us having enough resources, including skilled volunteers from across the world, work was slow. We fought a long battle with the local mayor because many of the families who were living in the block had no idea that they were being required to move on. Despite our refusal to give kickbacks, officials demanded bribes in return for essential documents or anything else that would advance the project. This resulted in long delays. The location quickly became more of a ghetto and inhabited by more and more desperately poor Roma families, caught up in a situation of worsening economic conditions and unaffordable housing. An unhappy UK volunteer made a complaint against the charity, and the local UK media seized on it with damning coverage. Despite the allegation being proved false by the UK charity commissioners, the scandal had a negative impact on our fundraising and our donations of materials, building materials. Also, the number of volunteers who were willing to travel to Romania and work on the building diminished. It was now the autumn of 1994, and all these hardships resulted in the British charity collapsing. My personal life had buckled around me also, gradually at first, and then with an increasing speed, until I found myself without a home in the UK, my life savings gone, and the painful divorce. It was a bleak winter, trying single-handedly to prevent the Roma from breaking into the building. Day and night became fused as I often stayed in bed, wallowed in self-pity and refusing to acknowledge a future. I simply existed. During bouts of depression, my personal demons showed themselves each in turn. The following spring, I found myself sitting on the terrace of the Minerva Hotel, having been summoned there one evening by some British friends. Each one had, in turn, told me to go back home. I was finished in Romania. It was over. Go home and get a life was the consistent message. They offered me the airfare. I walked back to Zabruz and started to think about the situation for the first time seriously that I was in. I realised at that time that I couldn't escape all the hurt by running away. No matter how hard I tried to ignore it, it was always there, hanging over me like a dark cloud. It was then my exhaustion slowly gave way to a determination to understand who the entity I had become really was. The following morning, I looked through the 8 boxes in the deposit. I managed to find a suit, shirts, ties, and a pair of shoes. I've no idea who donated them, but they must have been small because they fitted me perfectly. Encouraged by Romanian friends, I created a new charity, a Romanian charity, that would continue from where the British charity had stopped. Joanne House became Casa Ioana, and we quickly developed new Romanian partners. Soon local non-governmental organisations would be helped to develop their own projects in the bloc. I was no longer an outsider, and Romania was no longer a million miles away. It was beginning to feel like home. I hate inequality. I hate it when those who have a great deal fail to help those through a lack of opportunity or choice who have found themselves left behind. It was heartbreaking to give up the concept of providing long-term foster care to the children from Bucharest. But by 1997, the Casa Ioana Centre boasted a residential school for profoundly handicapped children, a halfway house for young people leaving the state care institution system, a computer training centre that provided enabled adults with physical disabilities to enter the job market, and socio-medical centre for the hundreds of Roma families living in the area. That winter, the General Mayor for Bucharest asked Casa Ioana to open Romania's first emergency night shelter for homeless men since between the 2 world wars. The municipality made available a fruit and vegetable shop in the Bucharesti Noi area to house the project and its beneficiaries. In those days, Google was still in its infancy, so I couldn't search for what is a night shelter or how do I make a night shelter. So whom could I ask for advice? Within a few short weeks, we had approached and regularly met many men who were experiencing homelessness. And we discussed the project with them. I asked them what they thought a night shelter was. They turned to me and asked me what I thought was a night shelter, or what a night shelter was, because I was the expert. I disagreed and convinced them that they were more knowledgeable than I, because they had lived experience of being homeless, being without a home, whereas in my mind, I hadn't. Having agreed what their shelter would provide and what the rules and regulations would be, they helped clean and renovate the space before we equipped it with 20 beds, lockers, a large kitchen. Two of the shelter's residents were employed as supervisors. I will always remember the first night we opened. The invited dignitaries could not believe that I was entrusting the shelter and its residents to two homeless people. You're crazy, that word again. Everything will be stolen by the morning. Of course, it didn't happen. Instead, I found 20 very, very happy people. For one, it had been the first time he had slept in a bed in 5.5 years. Wow. For another, he told me he was so comfy that he wasn't going to waste it by going to sleep. Prince Charles visited the shelter on his first official visit to Romania in 1998, followed by King Mihai and Queen Anna, and over time many diplomats and dignitaries. During the summer of 2000, I was lying on the beach at Varmaveke when I heard a song by Leonard Cohen called Anthem. It was a dark song about finding hope in despair. In my reflective mood, I immediately resonated with a line in that song that went, "There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." Later that afternoon, I received a phone call to tell me that Casa Ioana was being invaded by the local Roma families, with the looting being shown live on TV. When I returned to Bucharest, I found that what hadn't been stolen had been destroyed. It looked like a disaster zone. I met with representatives of the centre's NGOs and promised to start all over again. They refused to have any more to do with the building. Reluctantly, I let it go. The building, the place where the light had penetrated the crack that was my heart and soul. The place where I had been reborn and was freed again was gone. It was a difficult decision. If any good came from this tragedy, it was to turn Casa Ioana's focus and my own onto helping people with experience of homelessness. At any one time, the demography of homelessness was predominantly older men who had lived on the streets for many years. But after a while, more women were becoming homeless. A few years later, older people who had been tricked into selling contracts when they thought they were selling or signing rental agreements. The middle 2000s witnessed a huge rise in family homelessness, and it was then that we decided to concentrate all our efforts on this particularly vulnerable group. Evidence soon showed that domestic abuse was a leading cause of family homelessness. And it's since 2010, Casa Ioana has focused on providing temporary accommodation and comprehensive social support to women and children experiencing domestic abuse and family homelessness. Today, Casa Ioana is a successful organisation with a committed and dedicated team of staff and volunteers. Following an extensive refurbishment, our two centres in Bucharest will provide temporary accommodation support to 16 single-parent families, including 26 children. As much as Casa Ioana has empowered its beneficiaries to make the right decisions and take back control over their lives, Casa Ioana has also been empowered with its mission and objectives, being shaped by the people and the experience of our beneficiaries. As for me, I'm travelling on a journey that has taken me from a life of a police officer tackling justice to one where I've witnessed so much injustice, intolerance, and inequality. I've learned the key to unlocking these three wrongs is opportunity. When we have the courage to show another way to those compliant to a system that fails them, then we create opportunity. When we look past that which is different and invite people to participate, we create opportunity. And when we can give the simple resources that enable people to make their own way, we enable people to create opportunities for themselves. So to you, my small anonymous donor, and all you who continue to give, I want to say thank you, because you've shown how a homeless immigrant tackling his demons in a slum in Bucharest can, with your donated suit and a shiny pair of shoes, begin to rebuild his life, find new purpose, and perhaps to go on to help a few others along the way. Thank you.